Welcome to Powerless Penguins United Big Book Study. This week I'm pleased to reintroduce Max D, who's coming along to carry on the Big Book Study. Over to you, Max.
Thank you, Lois. Good morning, everybody. My name is Mags. I'm an alcoholic. You all know the drugs are part of my story as well, and it's a delight to be here this morning. It's great to see everybody. Some regular faces, some people, little surprise visits, which is great. And I can see our house are right in the centre of my screen. You're very welcome. Lovely to see you again. And I hope everything's going well in there. And then when you get out of that place, come to a meeting like this that is based in the solution, get a sponsor, get a big book, have a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, and everything will be miraculous in your life. And I'm not just saying that because you're right in the centre of my screen. That is what happens when you have a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. Thank you to everybody that's done service this morning. It was so beautiful to listen to everybody before the meeting started. New people coming into service, trying to find their position, what they needed to do, maybe having a little bit of technical difficulties, but everybody rowing in to help and support and step in. That's what service is truly all about. And, people apologising for the fact that, I can't find the timer, or, I haven't read that paragraph. There is nothing to apologise for. You've shown up. You've taken the mantle. This is what it's all about. So thank you to everybody in this team that does this meeting 365 days a year, because you keep this room open for our house and for every single person that takes their seat at every single meeting. So you're part of a great service team here, and you'll get a really good grounding as to what service is in this fellowship, because it's a fundamental part of our recovery. It's a fundamental part of the 36 spiritual principles by which we're guided. And it's so great to see so many new people coming in and stepping into those positions. Laws, you and I are going to be redundant very soon if this keeps on going the way that it's going. We could have a bit of a break. Anyway, we're on page 90 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We started working with others last week. And I was saying also before the meeting that during the week I had a couple of calls and messages about the sharing of the page 89 last week. And I love it when I get the messages and I get the calls. And there was a couple of people that said they didn't agree with what I was saying. I'm like, happy days. Well, what do you want me to do about that? Because the reality of it is what I'm sharing with you is from the 164 pages. I do not get into any windy arguments. Maybe some of the things that I'm saying are causing a little bit of controversy in one's mind, but that's not the purpose. What I'm sharing is the facts that are set out. What I'm sharing is the truth of Alcoholics Anonymous, what the 12 steps are, how you have a spiritual awakening as the result of them. And if you disagree, then great. I can't change what is set out in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if there's something that you disagree with in what I'm saying from my own personal experience, my bitter experience, then that's okay too. But all I can share is how I practice these principles in all of our affairs. I think many people know me by now that I don't deviate because I've been taught not to. And yeah, I just think I wanted to share that with everybody. Some people think I am controversial. I'm not controversial. I'm just stating the facts. And there's a few facts in what we will cover potentially this morning. I don't know how far we're going to get with it, because as always, at the top of page 90, when you discover a prospect. Sam, we've got a little bit further than what we did last week. We only covered 2 words in the first 20 minutes. This week, we're probably only going to cover the first 5. So when you discover a prospect, So this is important. We're in, again, working with others. We know from the previous page that this is all about intensive work, one alcoholic with another. It ensures permanent recovery, not only my permanent recovery, but permanent recovery across the world. When I do this sponsorship deal, I'm not just looking after my own permanent recovery. I'm going to be working with somebody who's going to have a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, and they'll have permanent recovery. And that word permanent recovery is set out in the foreword to the second edition. That's not words that I'm just using of myself. It's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. And what this working with others is so incredibly important, because as it says on page 89, it ensures our immunity from drinking. This intensive work ensures our immunity from drinking. Like if I have a medical condition and I go and get an injection, it ensures my immunity from that particular illness that I have. And the same applies to alcoholism. My intensive work, one alcoholic with another, through one-to-one sponsorship, it ensures that I have this immunity. And what it does is gives me this almost resistance to this illness that I have. And what it supports with is it prevents its development, basically. When we have a progressive illness, that's what's set out in more about alcoholism. This illness is progressive. I know I'm never cured from it, but what I also know is I'm fully recovered. The problem has been solved. That's what it says in the first paragraph of page 17. We know all of this stuff by now. The problem has been solved. I have recovered, past tense. Okay? But in order to make sure that it doesn't continue to develop in any way where the alcohol thing returns and I end up back at step 1, powerless, physically, mentally, and my life is completely and utterly unmanageable, I have to do this intensive work, one alcoholic with another. It's as simple as that. Couldn't be more clear cut. But when we discover a prospect, I love the word discover. I always think of, finding treasure. I always think of discovering a beautiful treasure chest at the bottom of the sea that's filled with beautiful, precious gems. That's what we discover. And I know that might sound all frothy and woo-woo and all of that, but if I go into the mindset of discovering, if I go to find, when I have to discover something, I have to go out, I have to find it. I come across it, I discover it, So it's me that has to take the action to go find that treasure. When you discover a prospect, another beautiful word, a prospect we know from page 18, the mindset that I have when I'm going into sponsorship or when I am going to make that discovery is, a prospect is a person who is likely to succeed. Isn't that amazing? You are making the approach to a still sick and suffering alcoholic who is likely to succeed. You're not going into this with it. Well, certainly I'm not going into a mindset going, oh my God, this one, geez, no hope for her. Well, realistically, there is no hope. They are hopeless. They are beyond medical aid. There is no hope unless they go through this program and have a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. But I can't go in with a mindset of this is not going to work. I'm going in with the mindset of there is a cast iron guarantee that if you follow these 12 steps and have a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps and take all of the action that needs to be taken as you go through the steps and your daily reprieve for the rest of your life, you are likely to succeed. That's a really positive thing to be sharing at this point. Okay? But here's the other thing. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, very, very, very specific. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, i.e. the book, i.e. the 12 steps that are set out within the book, That is doing the work. That is taking the action. It is a program of recovery and it is a program of action. It doesn't say here when you discover a prospect for sitting in meetings, 90 meetings at 90 days. It doesn't say that. It talks specifically about Alcoholics Anonymous, which means the content of the 164 pages. That has to sit. Think about that. And what we're going to go through over the course of the next couple of paragraphs in the next couple of weeks, we must take it in the context from which the book was written. This was way back in the 1930s, by the way, when it first went into print. And the conditions that they had at that time were very, very, very different to what we have now. The ease of accessibility to finding prospects is a gazillion times easier than it was back then. They were traveling the east, west, all over the United States to try and find these prospects. They eventually got the publication of the book to be able to help them. There was no platforms like this. There was no, chat apps or anything like that for them to quickly get in touch with each other. They had to do real hard graft, right? So count yourself lucky. It might feel to you this is still really hard graft, and it is. Don't get me wrong. It would be remiss of me to say this is easy, because it's not. You heard me say last week, my sponsors taught me, if it's convenient, you're not doing enough of it. There has to be a level of inconvenience around this. But some of the things that they say over the course of the next couple of paragraphs, are within the context of when the book was written. But the general principles of this approach, the general principles of what they're saying here completely and utterly apply to today when we are approaching those individuals that require our help. And I think it's important at this point also to talk about that word approach. It's mentioned about 19 different times throughout the 164 pages. As an individual who has recovered from alcoholism, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, it's my responsibility now, my mission, my assignment to try to carry this message, i.e. the message from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, not my interpretation of it, not my opinion of it, not what I agree with and what I don't agree with. My responsibility is to carry the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and nothing else. And if you don't want to be my friend because I am the person that is a big book enthusiast, that's brilliant. I'll still be your friend, but if you don't want to be mine, that's grand. If you don't want to hang out with me, that's grand. I've got plenty of people to be hanging about with, but I'll still hear and waiting if you change your mind. There's plenty of room for everybody in this world and everything that we need to get from each other. I don't hold any grudges about anybody that has a challenge against me. That's totally fine. Anyway, that word approach is mentioned about 19 times. And it's really important. We don't sit here and just wait, with a little crown on my head and, like 5 stars on my epaulets on either shoulder to let everybody know in the meeting, I have passed. Congratulations, you've met MAGS. She's a superstar. She's a sponsor. Can you touch the hems of her garment so that you can become one of her sponsees? That's not how this operates, people. That is not how it operates. I don't just sit and wait on all of you guys finding out that I am now recovered and that you need to make an appointment with me to see whether I can be your sponsor or not. No, I actively approach, I actively reach out to people. Somebody here last week talked about the fact that they approach, you're putting your number in the chat, you're putting your number wherever, you're reaching out and you're giving people your details. The chat on this meeting in particular, and many others, of course, is constant lit up with messages, here to help, here to help, here to help, letting people know that they can sponsor. It's challenging sometimes though, isn't it, for people that are in service, that if they're getting messages, they can't always respond immediately or they miss things in the chat and all of that. But the thing is, to approach means that I have to step forward. I have to go to the person. I have to step forward to the newcomer, because how does the newcomer know who to approach? Yes, in some meetings they have a newcomer rep, which is really, really helpful. But if I'm sitting here and I'm hearing somebody and they're in agony with trying to get over alcohol or whatever their thing is, and if I'm hearing that distress in their voice and they're sharing all of their problems in the room, I can't guarantee that the other people in the meeting are going to reach out to that individual. I can't be passive and sit back and say, oh, it's all right. So Lorraine will do that one. Lorraine will pick that one up. She's always picking people up. She's always sending out her number. I'll leave it with her. I can't be passive like that. I have to step forward. I have to make that approach, and it's up to the individual then what they do with that information. And the other thing about an approach, if you're looking into the definition of it, it's really important as well. It's about dealing with a situation that is arising with a specific method or style. We have a very specific method. We have a very specific recipe. We have a very specific methodology, if you like, if you're talking around science and research. We have a very specific set of instructions, clear-cut, masterly set out directions that 100% will give this prospect, this person who's likely to be successful, an absolutely different way of living that will enable them to have a psychic change, a personality change, that will enable you to overcome alcohol for it never to feature in your life again. That is the importance of sponsorship. That is what you need. When you leave a treatment facility, you need a sponsor. When you leave the hospital, you need a sponsor. On page 18, it talks about the qualities of what that sponsor will look like. That the man who is making the approach, page 18, bottom paragraph, has had the same difficulty, has struggled to overcome alcoholism, has struggled with drugs. That he obviously knows what he is talking about. Now, not what he's talking about in the football results that happened last week or what's happening with the latest album that's being released on Spotify. It's not what he knows about around the world, you know, the people that have gone to space and the science behind I don't know what. He obviously knows what he's talking about in relation to the 12-step recovery program and how he used that to overcome. You know, when I engage and I approach the newcomer, they're not necessarily getting the personal details of who I am, where I'm from, etc., etc. They're getting an understanding in the first instance of the fact that I was hopeless, beyond medical aid, that I nearly died as a result of my drinking and using. But here's how I overcome it. I love this next part, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer. I would hope that my deportment shouts at people, not in an aggressive way, but my whole deportment shouts that I've got a real answer. You know, my real answer is that everything is set out in this big book. My life has changed because I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, and I make no apology for my constant reference back to the spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, because that's how I've overcome all of the disadvantages, not only in relation to my using, but I have no problems in my life. All of my problems have been solved. My whole deportment shouts about recovery. My whole deportment shouts about the fact that, you know what, you're hopeless, but I can help you. What do you need to do? This is what you need to do. If anybody comes to me with a problem, I'm like, what are you talking about? You've got problems. Let's talk about this. Let's get into the action. Let's keep turning the pages. Let's keep having faith in this process. That's all we need to have. It's as simple as that. And at any given point, my whole deportment doesn't shout that I have a real answer, then I need to look at myself in my step 10 and 11. Because my step 10 and 11 makes me more useful in step 12. If I'm carrying the negativity and carrying this message in my step 12 practice, then there's something wrong with my spiritual condition that I need to look at, not something wrong with the person that I'm approaching. Remember that. And I'm saying that out loud to remind myself. If there's something wrong with my attitude towards this new prospect, it's me for to look at, not the other person. I meet these individuals where they're at, not where I need them to be. I'm meeting you when you come in through the doors. I'm not meeting you where I am. I'm not looking down at you from a holier than thou. And that goes on to say, I'm a person with a real answer. He has no attitude of holier than thou. Absolutely and utterly not. I'm not looking down at anybody from a spiritual hilltop. Absolutely and utterly not. I want to meet every prospect at the level at which they're at. How my sponsor met me, at the level at which I was at, down, out for the count nearly, you know. You're there with nothing whatsoever except the sincere desire to be helpful. That's it. A sincere desire to be helpful. There's no fees to pay, no access to grind, no people to please. I can tell you now, I certainly don't please a lot of people when I make this approach and set out what needs to happen for them to come on this journey. Seriously, I have no people to please. I'm just here. I've been given an assignment. I've been given a mission. I go out and I do it. Whether you like it or not, I'm on my mission. And as long as I set out and follow what is set out, then it's going to be happy days for every single one of us. There's no lectures to be endured. Absolutely and utterly not. Now, my best friend here, one of my best friends, you're all my best friends. Don't be taking a resentment because I haven't said you particularly. But one of my best friends, Miriam, look at that cheesy grin that you have on your face. You knew I was going to talk about you, didn't you? Or you were hoping that I was going to talk about you. And then if I had went to Lisa, you would have been raging. But one of my best friends, Miriam, you know, when we're doing all of this stuff together in Alcoholics Anonymous, sometimes I remember she felt that I was lecturing her. She felt that I was lecturing her. I'm sure there was those points, but genuinely there are no lectures to be endured. You may feel that with your sponsor, oh, they're telling me off. I feel as if I'm being lectured. I feel as if I'm being told off. I feel as if my mum or my dad's talking to me. I feel as if my teachers, get over it. Wind your neck in, as they say here in Belfast. They're not lecturing you. They're absolutely not. They're just setting out some instructions that you're probably not wanting to follow. And because you've never followed rules before, you're probably finding it a little bit difficult. But your sponsor's just here to take you by the hand, place your hand in the hand of the God of your own understanding, meet with you whenever they're going to meet with you, and keep on turning the pages. All their job is to keep on turning those pages with you and let the book do the work. So get over yourself if you think you're being lectured, because the reality of it is you're going to be doing it to somebody soon too. Because when you have a spiritual awakening as a result of your steps, whether you like it or not, you're going to turn into one of us. Didn't you, Miriam? Didn't you? That's how this rodeo rocks. This is how we rock. We pass it on. We pass it on. We pass it on. And I know that Miriam is passing it on to another woman that's smiling on this screen now. So here we go. You want to be part of our crew? You want to be part of our tribe? This is what happens. There are no lectures to be endured, because those 10 things that I've just talked about there, they are the conditions that we have found most effective. Most effective. To enable, to help, to be uniquely helpful, as it says at the bottom of page 89. You can help when no other human being can. These are the conditions that we find most effective. And after such an approach, after such a step forward, what happens? Oh my goodness me. When I read this line, this is what happened with me. Many take up their beds and walk again. Literally. Out of rehab, my sponsor and I got together again after 3.5 months, and I literally picked up my bed and started to walk again. And let me tell you, as a result of that, I've been given the ability through sponsorship. I've been given the ability to sponsor. And as a result of that, we not only walk again, we walk with purpose. We walk with confidence. Every single one of us stands shoulder to shoulder on this mission. Yes, we trudge. One of the last lines in the 164 pages. We trudge this road of happy destiny. We're on this road. We're not trudging this road to happy destiny. We're already trudging this road of happy destiny. We're already on it. We're building an army. Working with others is a call to action. A vision for you is a call to action to build the fellowship that we wish to seek. And how are we doing that? We're discovering prospects for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing else. In my home group, this is how our rodeo rocks. This is how this rodeo rocks here in this meeting as well. If you come into our room, you are either a newcomer who is being sponsored, so therefore is no longer a newcomer because they're immersed in the solution. So you're either being sponsored or you're sponsoring. That's the people that are in the tribe. That's the people that are in the meeting. If you are not being sponsored or you're not sponsoring, what are you doing? Think about that. Because if you require the solution that will solve every single one of the problems that you have at this moment in time, you need not just be sitting in meetings. That is not a program of action. That is not a program of recovery. There's a little illustration that's popping up every now and again, and it shows a picture of two rooms, one with a 12-step recovery door and another with a 90 meeting in 90 days door. The 90 meetings in 90 days door has a queue the length of Ireland. The 12-step recovery program has no one standing at the door. Everybody should be standing at the door of the 12-step recovery program. 90 meetings in 90 days is not going to get you sober by itself. Meetings are an important part of the 36 spiritual principles. Absolutely they are, but they're only one part of that triangle. They're only one part. Recovery for your mind. Remember, our illness centers in our mind. The 12 steps, the 12 spiritual principles by which you're guided. Unity, the physical side of your illness. Take yourself to a meeting. Absolutely. Get involved in a home group. Get into service. The 12 concepts of world service. You know, those 36 spiritual principles being right in the center of those is what makes you complete. That's when you become rocketed to the fourth dimension of existence. So that thread of sponsorship and working with others is initiated right from the beginning of the book. It's initiated right the way through from the forwards up to this point when we get to this chapter. I hope you can sense that I'm passionate about this. I hope that my deportment is shouting that there is a real answer within this. Because if we, like I said it last week, every single one of us on this meeting, you know, every single one of us in this meeting has the privilege to sit here because 100 men and women took the time to put these words into this book because they wanted more and more people to become recovered. Yet some of us are sitting in the room bone idle doing nothing with it. I'm carrying this message in my part of the world for the people that don't even know they need it yet. We're here to protect this fellowship, grow this fellowship, build this fellowship, strengthen this fellowship of the Spirit for the future, for the people that don't even know they need it yet. Think about that young person at school who doesn't even know they're about to go out on a journey of misery, depression, a progressive illness that they don't even know they need yet. Who are they going to reach out for help in 10 years' time if we're not doing what we need to be doing in order to grow the fellowship which we wish to seek? You know? Page 15, it tells us very clearly, newcomers, meetings are where the newcomers come to find the fellowship they wish to seek. The fellowship, the camaraderie that is set out on page 17, but the fellowship we start with when we come in through those doors for the first time is very, very different to the fellowship of the Spirit, which we end up in, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. So you see, Sam, the first 7 or 8 words haven't got very far this morning, but that's important. All of this is important. This is not about the speed at which we do this stuff. It's about, how we really take it in, how we breathe it, how it becomes part of us, how it becomes part of our changed mindset, how it becomes part of this personality change, So when you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. Yeah, number 1, find out all you can about him. Now, here's the caveat. I don't need to know what football team they support, who's their favourite singer, how many kids they have at this stage, what school they went to when they were 4 years of age, where they live, what car they drive. No, find out all you can about him is, have you tried to stop drinking? Because you're obviously coming into these rooms for something to do with alcohol or addiction. So if a newcomer comes in, okay, is this your first meeting? Find out all you can about him. Is it your first meeting? Is it your second meeting? Have you been to meetings before? You're finding out all about that. It's like the little diagnostic that they have at the top of page 44 in We Agnostics. Have you tried to stop drinking altogether? How's that gone for you? Have you tried to control your drinking? How's that gone for you? Well, if they haven't gone very well, you're probably one of us. So let me talk to you about what we have to offer, which is a 12-step program that will enable you to overcome all of your problems. That's how I find out all about them. It's all I need to know. And when do you want to get started? Do you have a big book or do you need me to get you one? That's all I need to find out. Have you been in rehab? Yes or no? Doesn't matter what rehab they've been in. But did you follow the steps when you got out of the rehab? Yes or no? It's very, very clear cut. I'm not getting into all of the airy-fairy stuff. I'm trying to get to the crux of the problem. Do you want this solution or do you not? Because all I have to give you is the solution. I'm not here to talk about going for frothy matches with vanilla and coconut. No, I'm not. I'm here to do that in the first instance when we're doing the big book, but that's not what the program is. I'm here for action. I'm here to take you through the big book. And if you're not interested, then that's okay. Here's my number. We leave with a friend. We always leave with a friend, because the next line is exceptionally important, as well as number 1, finding out all you can about him and what his behaviours and patterns have been around drinking and using up to this point. Number 2, if he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. Very, very clear. If I make that approach and I tell people, I've got what you're looking for, and that's not egoic in me saying that. It's not. I'm stating in a very matter-of-fact way, like it says in our step 1, when Ebby was approached by Sebro Graves and Roland Hazard, they said in a very matter-of-fact way that they had a practical program of action. That's what I'm sharing with the newcomer. I've got a really practical program of action that I can help take you through. Are you interested or are you not? If they say to me, well, you know what, I'm going to take 4 days to consider that. Go ahead. Here's my number. But I move on to the next prospect. If that individual doesn't call me, there's a line of people, that says we can hardly scratch the surface. In the cities and environs around me, there's lots of people that require this. Here's my number. You want to call me in 4 days? I'm not putting it into my calendar to follow up with you in 4 days. You take the action to follow up with me, because that starts to demonstrate how much they want the program too. We waste no time. Because if somebody wishes to, and I don't get me wrong, I was one of these people. Can you leave it with me? I'll think about it for another few days. I'm going to live in this misery, this stagnant pond, this bitter morass of self-pity that's stretching all around me. Just let me consider a wee bit more whether I want to move towards the light. Leave it with me. Have you ever heard anything so ridiculous? That's where the alcoholic mind can take us to. You know what? I'm on the verge of going into rehab for 3.5 months, but thanks very much for the offer and for everything that you've told me about the solution that you can give me. I think I'll just suffer in silence for another little while. Addiction, alcoholism is the only illness in the world where, like, seriously, seriously how cunning, baffling and powerful it is that it has the ability, the power, the cunning ability, strength and power to be able to keep me stuck when somebody is approaching me to release me from the bondage of every single part of this. It's incredible, isn't it? And that I used to be the person when somebody approached me to say, do you know what? You don't really know who I am. You don't really know where I come from. You don't really know what you're talking about. You're not from my side of town. You don't do the job that I do and you're not at the level of job that I do. So do you know what? You couldn't possibly bring me through and change my life. Like, talk about ego. Talk about a lack of humility. Horrible when I think back to how it used to be. How dare I ask the question, well, you know, how long have you been sober? And the sponsor who is making the approach to me, well, actually, I've been around 9 months. No, I need somebody with more experience. I need somebody that's 33 years sober. Really? This person that approached me was 9 months sober, had already set up their own home group, had already got a tranche of people building their army. And I had the audacity to say, you're not good enough. You're not experienced enough. I had no clue what I was talking about. Yet this gentleman of 9 months was filled with the solution. His whole deportment shouted at me that he had a real answer. Yet I used to look down on him. Who does he think he is? And what happened with me? My illness progressed. What happened with me? It got worse, never better. What happened with me? I nearly died. What happened with me? I ended up in rehab for 3.5 months. What happened with me? I lost my family. In my mind, I lost my family. But the reality of it is, as I've gone through this program, is that I'm now of the understanding that my beautiful, amazing family had to let me go in order for me to be sitting here with you today. That's the change in my thinking. That's the psychic change. That's what happens with this spiritual experience and awakening as the result of the steps. This is why sponsorship and sponsoring is so incredibly important. So don't waste time. You've got enough work to be getting on with. Leave them the number. If they need you, they'll always come back to you. And I love those phone calls. Mags, it's me. Hi. And you know what my response is? And I think, Mark, you'll know this from my home group, and Laws will know this. Anytime I'm on those meetings and if I'm doing the meeting or I'm being of service, I'll always say to the newcomers, you're very, very welcome. And for those that have been returning that went out on the relapse, we've been waiting for you. We will always be waiting for you in these rooms. After every relapse, it gets worse, never better, but we are always waiting. And you think God's not working? You think God's not for you? Well, whilst you're doing all of that, whilst you feel you're waiting, God is still working. Always. Irrespective of what you think. Because this army of people that are building this fellowship which you wish to seek are always growing, always developing, always adding more and more people that want to do this work. I love the fact that I waste no time. I love the fact that we waste no time. Like this morning on this meeting, can you do the timer? No, we waste no time. Get somebody else to do it. You know what I mean? That's the way that it goes. We are action all the time, focused on the solution to be able to do things and keep the doors open for people. That's what this is all about. Because we want everybody to experience the joy of living. We want everybody to experience full-blown recovery. We want everybody to not just have relief from alcohol. That's not what life's about. No, it's not. Life is for living. Who would have thought life is for living in every respect? So you don't waste your time trying to persuade him. It's not up to me to convince you that you're an alcoholic or that you're one of us. You need to be convinced by yourself. Convinced meaning moved by the evidence, okay? At the bottom of page 31 and more about alcoholism, it simply says you can quickly diagnose yourself. You can quickly diagnose yourself by getting a sponsor and going through the steps. You'll understand step 1 much more effectively as to how you're powerless physically, mentally, and how your life has become unmanageable if you do step 1 with a sponsor, you know? It's up to you to be convinced. It's up to you to be moved by the evidence of the details and the masterly detail that is set out in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous for you to diagnose yourself. Okay? We're just here as the conduit. We're just here as the vessel to get you to the power that is greater than you. Because if I try to convince you, and like the bottom paragraph on page 89, if I could become all evangelical or try to be the reformer, which I did start out as when the first couple of prospects that I had, and then I cooled my jets with regards to that because I wasn't getting very far. You know, shoving this down people's throats. Oh, you gotta get this, you're gonna die. Well, I kind of still do that, but in a way that is different. You still get the message that you're hopeless, you're beyond medical aid. But I'm not like, you know, tying you to a chair and saying to you, you can't move until you do these steps. No, I'm not like that. The language that I practiced over the time and, you know, we learn through bitter experience. I had somebody contact me during the week. It's like, you know, thank you to all of my sponsees because you are my most amazing teachers. You teach me about me. I love it. I love it. And I learn a lot about you as well. But there's so many blocks to the awareness of God's presence in me that you help me get removed. So thank you for your not showing up, and thank you for your tantrums, and thank you for your screaming matches, and thank you for messing me about, and thank you for shouting at me, and thank you for bringing trouble to my door, and thank you for calling me at all hours in the morning. Thank you so much. Because I learned about me and what it is to be useful and what it is to truly be a trusted servant on a mission for a power that is greater than me. Thank you so much. Because through that I've grown and learned what it is to give of myself and to become the person that is more loving, that is more tolerant, that is more compassionate and kind and caring, you know, and who is more matter of fact. I thought that God was going to remove that from me, you know, my directness, my matter of factness. No, God has made me more because in fact it becomes more useful to him, you know. That's what I tell myself anyway. Maybe I need to take that to my inventory. I can see a few faces squirming on the screen going, really, Mags, that's your justification? You get my drift. Because if I became, like the next line, really evangelical and really try to be the reformer, I'm going to spoil a later opportunity. It tells us later on, we leave with a friend. I give you my number. You contact me. If I'm too heavy-handed in the first instance, I'm going to spoil an opportunity. I'm going to put you off the fellowship. I'm going to put you off sponsorship. That's not what it's about. This advice should be given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. Remember, the first paragraph in the foreword to the first edition talks about that we are a very sick person. On page 89, it tells us that we need to remember that, you know, the still sick and suffering are very ill. Okay. The context in which this part of the paragraph is written is that, you know, in many respects, back in the 30s when the book was first written, the fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous and the fellowships were making direct approaches to the families. The families were making direct approaches to them. That doesn't happen very much these days in my, you know, experience of sponsorship. More often than not, I'm dealing directly with the individuals that I meet within the fellowship. Of course, there has been times over the years where I have been in touch with partners, mothers, fathers, you know, any relatives, close friends, employers have even reached out to say, Mags, I know that you're sponsoring this individual, but here's what's happening and da-da-da-da-da. And the only words that I use are from this paragraph. You got to be patient. They're very sick. They're suffering from a progressive illness. I share with them the nature of what it is to be powerless, that they've got no mental defense against the first drink. And what you've got to do is just to let them be. You've just got to let them be. You've got to get on with your life. I will direct them to another fellowship, Al-Anon for families, a completely separate fellowship from Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not our cousin. It's not our sister. It's not any relative of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a completely different fellowship altogether. But if any family members need help, I will direct them to a member of Al-Anon to be able to help them through. Okay, they've got to be patient. I share exactly what is set out within this chapter to be able to guide the family members or employers as to what they need to do with the still sick and suffering. And I just keep on doing what I've got to do. It's as simple as that. We have the privilege, the honour and the absolute convenience to be able to meet people in the rooms. And if you do get in touch with any family members, you need help with that, reach out. Your sponsor will know what to do. If there is any indication, love that word, if there's any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Now again, comes with the caveat, that's back in the day. That's back in the day. You may not have any direct contact with an individual's partner these days. But if he shows any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with him. Like it says in the previous paragraph, find out all you can about him. Get an idea of his behaviour, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition. You know, has he tried to stop drinking altogether? Has he tried to control his drinking? Has he been hospitalised? Has he been detoxed? All of that sort of stuff. And his religious leanings. The way that my sponsor did this with me was just inspired. I'm not starting to talk about the God of his understanding, but what my sponsor did with me was those 3 questions. Do you think you're powerless over alcohol? Yes or no? You know, and well, yeah, I kind of think I'm in trouble with alcohol. My behaviour would suggest blah, blah, blah. So that's the first question. Do you think you're powerless over alcohol? We talked a little bit around that. The next question was, do you believe, or are you willing to believe in something greater than yourself? I didn't even know what they were talking about, but what he was trying to ascertain there in that question was my religious leanings. He didn't go into whether I was in a religious denomination. He didn't go into my prayer and meditation routine at that time. He didn't go into any of that detail. He just simply asked that question, are you willing to believe in something greater than yourself? Or do you already believe in something greater than yourself? Yes or no? He already had ascertained my religious leanings. And then the last question he asked was, are you willing to carry this message and sponsor other people when you've had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps? To which I said yes and didn't even know what I was saying yes to. But I was so desperate that I said yes. And he held me to that the whole way through. He reminded me of that the whole way through. Because had I said, no, I'm not willing to carry this message, then he wouldn't have taken me through. And the reason for that is it would have been an 11-step self-help program as opposed to a 12-step recovery program. Remember, full-blown recovery is all 12 steps. If you're sitting in the mire of an 11-step self-help program where you're just praying and meditating and thinking everything's going to work out for you, remember what it says in the top paragraph on page 89, when all other activities fail. Work and self-sacrifice with another alcoholic is the thing that will change your life. Remember, top of page 14, bottom 14 into 15, how we enlarge our spiritual life is through work and self-sacrifice with others. Intensive work, one alcoholic with another. It goes on to say, you need this information. I love this line. You need this information to put yourself in his place. To see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. Oh my God, people. It is so easy to forget what it was like. It is so easy to forget how bad things were when your life becomes so remarkably wonderful as a result of having an awakening, as a result of the steps. It is very, very easy to step away from the door. It's very easy to come deep into these rooms and take your seat and never stand at the door to greet that newcomer. It's so easy to go deep into these rooms and just fill yourself with service and hosting meetings and all of that and think that that's enough. If you get the opportunity to read the poem, We Stand at the Door, it's by the Reverend Sam Shoemaker, very connected to Alcoholics Anonymous. We stand at the door. The importance of reaching out to the newcomer and taking their hand, bringing them into the room, giving them their seat, giving them their big book, giving them their sponsor, to enable them to do the same again and again and again. We stand at the door. We just don't go and live our lives and forget what it was to be at the level of the newcomer. We don't get our lives back on track to talk about the cash and prizes and all of the wonderful things that have happened in our life. It's not just about that. We continue to stand on the firing line. It says it in the doctor's opinion. Dr. Silkworth, was standing on the firing line. He talked about see the despairing wives, the children, be a part of their daily routine. He was on the firing line and he was a doctor. He wasn't a member of our fellowship. What my responsibility is, what my assignment is, what my mission is to stand on the firing line. It tells us later on in working with others to go into all the sordid places to find these people, to help get them out, to reach down. We stand on this common journey, shoulder to shoulder. We reach down to pick people up. We wrap our arms around people. No matter, it says at the bottom of page 15 as well, all of those things that have gone wrong, we see time and time again, these successful prospects, these little green shoots. If they show any indication that they want recovery, we have to give them Alcoholics Anonymous, not our own opinion, not our own ideas. We're here to sustain our fellowships for the people that don't know they need it yet. And a fundamental part of my daily routine, my daily reprieve, is working intensively one alcoholic with another. You get the message. I feel as if there's somebody in here that needs to hear this. Of course there is. It is work. But the outcomes are, you can't even articulate the outcomes that happen as a result of it. I get more pleasure of seeing the transformation in other people's lives because I don't even recognize that the transformation is happening in mine. I don't recognize it in my own life because that's a very beautiful thing, because what's more important to me these days is working with others. What's more important to me these days is to see the transformation and the light come on in other people's lives. So we didn't get very far, Sam, but that doesn't matter. We can all take one little nugget from this today. Remember, this ensures our immunity from alcohol for the rest of our lives. And I'll leave it at that.